In this video, I'm going to talk about 3 ways my second birth was different than my first. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the channel. This is Nicole, and I have a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old. Birth is still on my mind because it happened relatively recently. So I had 2 unmedicated births. One was in a hospital-connected birth center, and the other one was just in the hospital. And in some ways, they were similar. My first labor was about 6 hours long from the first crampy feeling to actually giving birth. And my second labor was also 6 hours long. But there were some key differences. So the first difference was the time spent pushing. During my first birth, I spent over an hour in the pushing stage. And that's I don't know if it's a long time, but it felt like a long time when I was in it. During my second birth, even though the labor was about the same amount of time, the pushing stage was about 6 minutes total. My baby came out in 2 pushes. So because of that, the second birth felt a lot easier. Number 2, Braxton Hicks contractions. When I was pregnant with my first, I felt absolutely nothing until the day that I gave birth. No Braxton Hicks contractions, no crampy feelings, nothing. When I was pregnant with my second, I had Braxton Hicks contractions for weeks. And I kept thinking this baby's coming early because, I was feeling it. There were a couple of false alarms. There was one day that I told my husband that he needs to take off work because the baby's definitely coming. But he took off work and the baby didn't come. So with my second, there were a lot more false alarms. And number 3 was the tearing and recovery. With my first, I tore. I think it was a 2nd-degree tear. It wasn't huge, but it was, took a little bit of stitching up and wasn't exactly the most pleasant. But with my second, I barely tore at all. My midwife said it was so small, it was barely even noticeable. And the recovery with my second was also a lot easier than after my first. I was up and moving on the same day after my second birth, and I overall felt a lot better. I know when I was pregnant with my second, I was trying to figure out, would my second birth be easier and faster and all of that than my first? In my case, the answer is yes, and I've heard from a lot of other moms that their second birth was also easier, but it can vary, of course. So what's your experience been like? If you're pregnant with your second, how does it compare to your first pregnancy?